Yes, it is the CastWorthy Podcast, and we are back at you. I am Big Steve, aka Last of a Dying Breed, on the Twitter machine, joined by the Savage EJ today. It is a toxic Sunday. We're gonna get started early. It's going to be early and often. This is not for the faint of heart today. Lots to cover. NSFW, all that cool stuff y'all be saying. It's cuffing season. So why not get started with it, man?
Is it?
What's going on?
Man,
it's always cuffing season for me, nigga. I'm married.
Oh yeah, that's right. Hey man, good fall weather up here. Nice and cold, you know what I'm saying?
Hoodie season.
Hoodie season is alive. It's among us. You know what I mean? Supposed to be leggings season, but women are selfish. We know this.
It's leggings season here.
It's leggings season there.
Yeah, we've been low 80s, high 70s the last couple of days, and for the next week we'll probably drop down starting after Tuesday. And then after the clocks go back, then we really start to see legging season.
Some good leggings meat so far.
Pumpkin spice, everything nice, and just hang out at the local Starbucks down here.
All right, okay. All right.
Depends what you like. You like leg of lamb? You like white meat? It's all day, man. All day down here. Yeah, man, that's the perfect season what you guys got going on up there, man. Like, this is my favorite time of year when I lived up there because it wasn't too cold. It wasn't cold enough to have to break out a big ass coat. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't hot, of course. And you jump in the car, you don't got to worry about bringing a coat, taking the coat off, putting it in the back seat, and then freezing your balls off when you get out to try and get your coat out the back seat. All of that shit. This is the perfect weather that you guys got right now, man.
I still wear shorts in this weather.
Yeah. And your legs be white as shit too. They be ashy.
Nah, man, you got lotion that. Can't be out here like that.
Yeah.
That's wintertime, Ash. Wintertime, if you gotta go outside with shorts on, you know what I mean? That's a quick run to the car. You know, you don't care about that one.
The first time you put your fucking shorts on in April, your legs be cracking and shit. I know. I know all about it. Luckily, it gets beautiful down here. It's really nice out down here. It's been nice the last few weeks.
Yeah. Good old Florida.
Yes, sir. So let's get right to it. Oh, before we get started, where can we be found? Everywhere. Check us out on Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. Look for us on YouTube. Look for us on Facebook Live every Sunday or every other Sunday. Just depending on scheduling.
iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. Twitter, we're not as active there as we should be, but we're around, man. Just search CastWorthy, CastWorthy, and you can find us. We have a little bit of everything to talk about today, so let's get right into it, man. Where do we start? Fuck it. Alec Baldwin is shooting niggas.
Such a tragic situation, man. Like, how does that, like, I need more context. Like, how does that even happen? Like, is it like, are these I would imagine these prop guns are as strong as, or some degree, some similarity to the power that a regular actual real gun would have. But it's like, God damn, like, what happened? Like,
the crazy part to me is that they actually have both, and it's not uncommon. I was reading yesterday, it's not uncommon for them to have both props and real guns on a set. It makes no sense to me. You know what I'm saying? Right. And they have according to the article I was reading, in the news article I was reading, they were saying that there's somebody that's responsible for screaming hot gun if it's a real gun, or cold gun if it's a prop gun, right before, whenever they shoot, when they're shooting a scene.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying that the person screamed cold gun. So he thought it's a prop, and of course, because he's shooting a scene where he's shooting somebody, he would expect it to be a prop gun. But there's someone that's responsible for checking the guns ahead of time, and then screaming it out on set, when you grab it, to say, hey, it's a cold gun or a hot gun. Again, not sure why they have real guns on a fucking set, but so that's what they're saying, that the person said it was a cold gun, he's ready to go, and they're saying he shot the first person, bang, and naturally they're acting. It's a movie, so he's expecting, oh, they're gonna act like they're hit, so they got hit and they're like, oh, so he thought they were acting, and then he goes on and shoots the second person, and I guess catches them up in the shoulder, somewhere in the upper extremity, and at that point they realized that the first person was actually like down, you know what I mean, and then they realized that what had taken place. But it's crazy, dude. That shit screams conspiracy, like when this shit happens, stuff like this, right?
I think largely you say that probably from Brandon Lee and the Crow.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see why they might have a real gun on set, because certain shots you can't really mask a prop gun. Like there are certain shows, and I would think that there are certain shows, because I've watched certain shows, right? I pay attention to that kind of stuff. I've watched certain shows where I've never seen a gun that looks real. I've only seen prop looking type
Right.
guns.
Funny looking shit.
Yeah, and they look horrible. You know what I'm saying? So I could see
Mm-hmm.
how in certain shots, if it's closer, you want to get more authenticity. But I don't understand why you wouldn't have maybe blanks for said scene, or some of the paintball guns of some point, or anything. I just don't see how there's been nothing else that can substitute this, that since when Brandon Lee got killed, you know what I mean? Like that would have, to me, changed a lot in the movie game, as far as this application of guns on the set. You know what I mean? So I'm with you. Very tragic, man. And Alec Baldwin, funny, great actor. I hope he can recover from that, man, because that's pretty tough.
He's an avid supporter of gun laws. He's liberal. He's extremely liberal. And so of course, fucking Republicans are having a lot of fun with this one. Then the memes are great though. It's funny. A lot of shit is funny. It is sad though. It's sad for the people involved. You gotta be sensitive to them, their families, but also sensitive to him mentally, to know that you just fucking killed a coworker,
Innocent human being,
right? And inadvertently, it's just crazy, man. Again, I don't get, there's certain scene, I get the point, there's certain scenes where they would have real guns and there's a need for them to look real, but I don't know why they would have any scenes where they shoot with real ammo, especially indoors. And I mean, I'm assuming this was indoors. It might have been outdoors. And maybe they were shooting something where at times they use the real ones to shoot into the sky or off into the woods or some crazy shit. But it's just crazy, man. It's crazy that you go to work one day and you get shot by Alec Baldwin. It's just wild, yo.
Yeah, it's sad, man. And again, mentally, I don't know how you gonna deal with that. That ain't something that you killed somebody and not on purpose.
Right.
Bad enough if you had intent to kill somebody, you still got to live with that remorse. This is an accident. Like that's major, man.
And the backlash that comes along with it too. You know what I mean? Like it's not just the fact that it took place, but he's getting a lot of backlash, and criticism all over the place, for it. I don't know how it looks in the smaller circles or how it looks, we don't really know that, but we know what the bigger picture looks like.
Yeah,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean?
Absolutely.
But shout out to them, man. Those involved, their families. We send best wishes to them. Prayers if you would. And you know, we'll watch that space and see if any additional stuff comes out of it, because that is some weird ass shit, man.
Mm. Yeah, definitely prayers to them.
Yeah. Rest in peace to Colin Powell while we're at it.
Indeed.
General Colin Powell passed away, first of his kind. Whether you appreciated him or didn't like him for whatever reasons, he was still a pioneer for our people. You still have to respect, as a minority, you have to respect the things that he did, the firsts. You probably can verbalize a little bit more of his accolades than I can. So I'll let you take away a little bit, and before we transition off of it.
Eh, no, you covered it. I
That's
mean, he was the first in that position to be African American. A lot of people give him a lot of flack for his time under Bush and the things that he, I guess you could say, cooperated with Bush, in the weapons of mass destruction and the war and everything of that nature. But at the end of the day, he was a government employee like anyone else. Secretary of State. What would you have this dude do? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
would you you have him, be the whistleblower? This
Right.
dude was a diplomat, 4-star general. What would you have him do, man? First African American Secretary of State. He can't mess it up for everybody else after him. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
So what could you do? Harlem, New York native, just uh
Sometimes you just got to conform, man. Sometimes you got to conform. They put you in a position where you have to, and it may be in the back of your head that you don't want to, but if you really see it as opportunities and a gateway to open doors for others, like, it is what it is. It's rare that anyone these days will understand that, because we are never going to truly be the first of anything, for black people,
That's
like
true.
some of these others were, right? The Barack Obamas, the Colin Powells, so many others, right? We'll never be the first to do anything like it, so we don't understand it. It's easy to look at something hindsight. It's easy to criticize and be critical of it when you're not in that position. So
And,
respectfully, man, you got to give him his props.
and the other thing is, right, and it always for me, and I think we can venture into this, right, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna set this up, and I don't know if we needed to go there yet, but it's political. Like, if he was in those positions under a Democratic regime, largely, would
Mm-hmm.
Democrats be bitching about him? Some people who might have been in the military at that point probably feel a little bit more passionate than anybody else, which I can understand. But it's all about the administration that you're in. The U.S. government, and this is why I'm becoming a little bit more cynical. It's all about party allegiances. It's all about
Mm-hmm.
what you see as your point that's salient and important to you. But this guy was doing a job like anyone else would have been. You know what I mean? Like, it isn't like he called all the shots. Yeah, he got down and dirty with the nastiness that was going on. But what would you have him do? That's his damn job. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, he's not, like you said, he's not gonna come out and be like, yeah, I'm the first black guy and I ain't down for this shit. Nah, like, he's gonna go with the flow, and it's his job. So I don't know, man. I do understand it, because at some point I can remember feeling that way back in the day. But now that the same way you coined it, I kind of get it now, especially more than ever as an adult, where we have to work for motherfuckers we don't agree with 85% of the time. I mean, what would you do?
Yeah. Yeah. 84 years old, man. Colin Powell was at his passing, lived a long life, lived a successful life. And he's absolutely a pioneer, man. Like it or love it. So rest in peace to him. They said it was COVID related. The man had cancer. He had what was the shit that Muhammad Ali had, the shaky shit. The
Uh,
oh that
not Lou
Michael J.
Gehrig.
That
Not
Michael
Lou
J.
Gehrig.
Fox got.
Parkinson's.
Parkinson's, yeah, he had
Yeah.
Parkinson's as well. So I've seen a lot of ignorant people be like, well, he was vaccinated and he died. Well, yeah, the nigga's 84. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was 84, and it's clear when people talk about vaccines that age comes into play, health comes into play. The diseases he had attack your immune system. So you know he was putting on an extra layer, but things happen, man. So either way, again, rest in peace to Colin Powell. And we'll take this moment while we're here, as we always do, any moment we can get, to say fuck Trump, because he came out and made a really nasty ass statement about Colin Powell. Actually, he tried to make it about himself, basically saying the fake news media is treating him well, Colin Powell, and a man who made many mistakes, etc. And he hopes that they do, that he gets that treatment one day. So just a piece of shit.
He does have a point, though.
Yeah.
He does
I
kind of have a
mean,
point. Like, I hope you motherfuckers forgive me too. That's really a New York piece of shit kind of way to say. Like, I hope you motherfuckers forgive me too.
Trump is a piece of shit, man. And he's not even like a big piece of shit. He's like that little piece of shit that pokes out your ass when you're driving home. That
Oh,
naggy one that you like, oh, come on.
the one you thought was already out when you took that smash
Yeah.
before that trip. Now you
You're
got to
like,
pull over at
please,
the gas station. But I mean,
please
Trump,
hold.
Trump, honestly though, keeping it 100, man, and I don't agree with this guy, but Trump literally says what the fuck people be thinking. Like,
Mhm.
if I was Trump, I would say some shit like that too. Like, like, y'all motherfuckers better give me a pass when it's my time.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Remember me?
Yeah, I mean, like,
I don't think it
Trump
was
just
as
says what he
bad though.
wants. Trump
I don't
just
think
says
it
what he
was as
wants.
bad.
But
Yeah.
speaking of the vax, man, the vax shit,
Vax
Kyrie is
life.
the latest topic. I'm kind of tired of this vax, not vax shit, because honestly, man, at the end of the day, right? And I've been thinking about it. I've been a little devil's advocate with it. We mad at Kyrie Irving because he don't want to get vaccinated, which in
Mm,
turn he don't want to play basketball.
mm.
So what? Are we mad because he's an entertainer and we want to see what the Nets will be like at full strength? Or are we mad that he makes millions of dollars and he don't want to be vaccinated? Like, at the end of the day, I get the societal view that people can have on it. But let's be real. The vaccination doesn't prevent COVID. I haven't read anything that scientifically will 100% affirm that it makes your chances less to spread or get it. They just said, motherfucker, you can get it and the vax is going to help you better through it. But it's not like it prevents it from being spread. We're talking about the antibodies being built, but there's variations coming out every day. People with vaccines still are susceptible to dying, hopefully not. But I'm like, at this point, you know what I mean? If you could be somewhere where you don't have to risk being around people like Kyrie, it would be smart for you not to be, right? So I'm kind of tired of this shit. Like, it's becoming more of a political thing. It's becoming more of a political undertone and war between Republicans and Democrats than it really is about health for me.
It's been political, and I think that's part of the problem, is that it is so political. And you know I'm all for people having the choice, to choose to get vaccinated or not. If you choose not to, in my eyes, you're selfish as fuck, but I'm not gonna dislike you for it, right? People disliking and hating and screaming and calling Kyrie names and stuff like that, I think it's irrational. just have a realistic reason behind why you're making that decision, whether you're Kyrie Irving or the fucking janitor down the street. You know what I mean? Like, just have a realistic reason, do some true research, understand what's going on, make sure your stuff is somewhat
Mm-hmm.
fact based or factual. Um, versus, and I'm again not just going at talking about Kyrie, but in general, you hear people that, oh, the conspiracies, government's poisoning us and blah 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 blah, right? And it's okay to kind of have that in the back of your mind, but when you're talking about millions upon millions upon millions of people that have already been vaccinated for extended periods of time at this point, with minimal casualties, from the vaccine, compared to the number of people who have fallen fatally ill, and even died from COVID that were not vaccinated. It's just the decision making to me just has to be better. When we get back to Kyrie, though, I think a big piece to it is just that he's in the public eye. I
Mm-hmm.
think people are hating him because he's in the public eye, because
Mm-hmm.
he's so vocal about it, right? If he
Mm-hmm.
had just not shown up, let's say he just didn't show up, and everything was behind closed doors with the team, and he's like, "Hey, listen, I'm not getting vaccinated, so you guys make the decision. Let me know what we're gonna do, and what comes of it comes of it." That's one thing. But when you're taken to the media and social media and you're doing this and that and the third, I think that's what, you're calling for that attention, and you absolutely have a right to your opinion, but you can't come out and be like, well, I'm not anti-vax, I just want to make my own decision. You know what I'm saying? And like, dude, well, then make your fucking decision, right? Because it sounds like everything you're saying is anti-vax, and you're leading people astray, and it's leading to people getting sick and dying and taking beds that are available for others and things of that nature, right? And to me, that's the piece that makes it, sensitive. I think if we were in a place where everyone was able to get vaccinated, meaning children included, babies, all the way up to senior citizens, no matter what your health was, kind of like the flu and stuff, then it wouldn't be such a big deal. But people are upset and frustrated because you are still putting others at risk by not getting vaccinated. Because you do tend to have a better chance of spreading it, specifically because you have symptoms, right? People who are asymptomatic are spreading at a lesser rate because they're not coughing, they're not sneezing, they're not,
But that,
you
but that
know,
isn't, but that isn't factually attributed to the. That's my thing, right? Because on both sides, there are things that we gloss over and that we don't really factually talk about. And to my knowledge, nothing has profoundly said that when you're vaccinated, you're more likely to be asymptomatic. There were people before we had a vaccine, including myself, at one point, at the second time, that were more asymptomatic, before this vaccine. So the reality is, right, when you listen to all the professionals, they know things, but they don't know everything. It's medicine, right? We know a little bit. We're not, nothing is 100%. And I get it, Kyrie's in the public because he's Kyrie, and a lot of that shit, they coming to him and they asking him, and we already know who Kyrie is. This really has nothing to do with vaccinations. Kyrie's been this guy. You know what I mean? He's been the guy that you don't want sound bites from. He's the guy that said this and that about the earth and all this other shit. So it's like, we killing somebody that we knew what to expect. He's one of these young cats that, is young athletes, sheltered athletes that never really did anything. He's not one of those guys that grew up on the streets and all of that kind of stuff. He was one of those AU kids, and we know what we getting. You know what I mean? For me, I get that part about the hospitalizations. I think that's a very valid point. But I don't know that the vaccines, will help any, not won't help, but we're talking about the people that are reckless, right? Like for me, if you're gonna be out there reckless and doing these other wild things and being a bunch around a bunch of unvaccinated people, not so much the spreading, but if it comes to you, right, the vaccine is supposed to help alleviate you from dying, essentially. Those are the things that, and to your point, if you're not vaccinated and now you've put yourself in a precarious situation, now you need the hospital bed. Now you've become a jerk off because now you knew the risks, but now because you didn't want to be vaccinated, your chances of not needing that hospital bed has gone down. But essentially, if you're around motherfuckers that don't care and you don't care, then y'all be in COVID land together. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I don't know. It's getting old to me. It's getting old to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's starting to become a dead horse, but
Literally.
the reality of it is, when you think about and you look at, the cases like, what was it, Idaho, where they had to send multiple individuals who had, injuries and illness not related to COVID to other states,
Yeah.
to be seen in hospitals because all of their beds were taken by COVID cases. And there's such an anti-vax state and an anti-mask state, those are the cases that I think people are missing. Those are the cases to be magnified, not the cases in which, somebody, you might live in, New York or Pennsylvania or Connecticut, where they're actually doing things to try and keep people safe, and you end up, getting it and then going to the hospital. That's different. But they live in these areas where people are spreading propaganda, basically saying, oh, the government just hates us, and you're gonna wear a mask and you're gonna get poisoned because you're breathing in your own, carbon dioxide and XYZ and WX, and so that's the shit that's nerve-wracking and frustrating, and it makes people angry, right? And it puts us in a place now also where we need these boosters, because the way viruses work is, it's
They mutate.
multiplying. They're mutating, right? And they're mutating not in people that are negative. They're mutating in these people that are positive, and these people whose immune systems can't fight, and don't know how to fight the viruses. So, I get both sides to it. Like I said, man, people that don't want to do it, I get it. Stay the fuck around me. That's my thing.
Because I never got a flu shot.
And wear a mask. Like, that's my thing. Like, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But don't not get vaccinated and then be like, well, how come I don't have the right to not wear a mask? Like, relax, man. People are just asking you to take some type of level of precaution to keep others safe. Like, you know what I'm saying? So,
and I get it, because I never got a flu shot for the very same reason. I never got a flu shot. Like, why am I gonna get a flu shot knowing this shit's gonna make me sick? And you know what I mean? Like, I'll just deal with it the natural way. And hey, I mean, at the end of the day, this is America, right? This is supposed to be, and again, it's like, what side of things are you on? And I guarantee you that if the right was pushing this thing, and people on the left would be hesitant. And honestly, it just comes down to politics for me. And a lot of what we see, it comes down to politics and what people don't believe in. People are so, and me and you, I think, are in the same lane. People are so gung-ho on their politics on both sides that they will refuse to criticize their own party. They might say one or two things every 3 months, but when
they keep it safe though.
They keep it safe though. But when their party's a piece of shit, they really don't want to say nothing. You know what I mean? Like, looking at what's going on with Black people in this country and all of the things that we're not getting. Germany is still paying reparations to people from the Holocaust. We haven't gotten a goddamn thing. We're asking for student loan debt to be forgiven. Oh, well, you can't really do that. It's just not. Why? You know what I mean? Like, why? You're not getting the shit anyway. They've already projected that they're not.
Niggas ain't paying that shit.
They already projected that they're never gonna get what they're supposed to get from people. Shut it down.
And it's not only the fact that they're not getting it; it's that they fucking put so much interest on them. You know what I'm saying?
Interest.
Like, at least give it interest free. Like,
exactly.
Give the student loans interest free to motherfuckers. Be like, yo, here's the money. You got to pay it back. 0 interest, because the amount of interest people are paying, motherfuckers are dying in debt for student loans still. And I'm not talking about the people that are dying like just randomly. These are people that are aging out and they still owe student loan money.
And you want to say, well, you should have been more knowledgeable about it. Okay. Well, it's a lot of that stuff was predatory, because a lot of the people that do have student loans look like you and I, that never had any knowledge or understanding of this. Why would you give somebody $200 grand for a $40,000 education? Why with no true education, none of that. And it's literally perilous to our community. And these are the people that are trying to be educated. So then how do we then get to the people that truly have no career track or educational track to get multiple degrees, etc., when the people that are educating and working in the workforce can't even survive because they made a mistake, they were uneducated. A lot of that shit shouldn't have been allowed. It shouldn't have been. Motherfuckers shouldn't have been able to take all of this money back, and let alone the career they're going into. You know what I mean?
And put it into another perspective for you. You give somebody X amount of money, $100,000, $50,000, $80,000 for an education, but you wouldn't have given that same person that money to open a business. You wouldn't have given that same person that money to buy a house. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you're only doing it to capitalize on the lower. You know that eventually this person's going to have to pay you back, right? But if they were to open a business, they would eventually potentially pay that shit back. If they were to buy a house, then they have something, that could, that could appreciate, right? And as it appreciates, they can pay that money back much quicker. But instead, we keep people enslaved with, with the student loans. And, where is Biden on this? Like, this is a huge thing, man. And this is where he needs to be held accountable. He has to be. And he's being held accountable by his own fucking party. So that's
burn.
Yeah, that's where you have to sit back and say, like, listen, I need to make a decision. And I get it, man. VP says it all the time. Timing is everything, and politics, the way it works, etc. XYZ. I get that. But you can't wait for this shit to crumble all the way to the ground and then be like, hey, here's a fucking screwdriver, put it back together. And the screwdriver being the student loan forgiveness, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, hit it now while this shit is starting to crumble. His numbers are going down. Things are starting to trend up. Trump is making his way back into people's minds and hearts. You know what I mean? And then you have the naysayers who were against Trump that are now like, well, I'm now against Biden because what the fuck am I getting? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at it from an infrastructure standpoint, we're looking at the nation, and you think about it. If you do that, how much better, or how much could the economy benefit from that? And sure, maybe this, do you forgive now, and then what happens in the future? Well, what happens in the future is, just like we make immigration, just like we want to have stricter gun laws and all of this other shit, get some money and infrastructure around educating people better on loans and what they're doing. Okay, if your tuition is $20,000 a year, we're not going to give you $100,000 up front. We're not going to give you this. We're not going to give you that. We're not just going to give this shit away to you frivolously, knowing that you're not going to be able to pay it back. That's just bullshit. And all of that political jargon, and it's all bullshit. Forgive the loans, let the economy flip itself over and do what it's going to do. Because I guarantee you, people are going to start spending more. They're going to invest more. They're going to do all of the things you were just talking about. And it's just bullshit that this nation isn't having that. And this guy who's in office, who hasn't done shit for black people, same person that said, if you're black, and you don't vote for me, you're not black. You're not doing a goddamn thing for black people. You're not. And let's just call it what it is. And we want to talk about, well, yes, the slow walk has only been this time. Okay. Well, the way you're going, we're not gonna have another Democratic president. So when are we ever gonna have the time to get this shit done?
Yeah. I mean, he's got 3 years left to try and get things together and try and make it to where people trust. I mean, people are just not trusting government at this point, right? Before you at least had it.
That's why Trump got elected. That is one of the main reasons he got elected. When he said, I'm not gonna be the typical politician, a lot of middle of the road people, whether you agree with them or not, whatever, they went that way because he didn't start out being on this racist, all this other shit. He started out saying, look, you've been getting screwed over all this time. You voted red, you voted blue, and what has it got you? You know what I mean? And it just so happens that the people that scream the loudest, that are voting the loudest, the zealots, whatever you want to call them, he started appealing to them more by saying this wild shit, and they're getting what they want. The other people, it's the others like us that aren't getting what we want, no matter what we do, no matter who we vote for. Okay, we heard you, we got this guy out, now you're in, and we still not getting shit but excuses.
Yeah, I heard somebody yesterday say Democrats make promises to poor people and Republicans just tell them the truth, and and the promises are broken promises. It was, they said Democrats make broken promises to poor people while Republicans tell them the truth, and that's where we are today. That's what they were saying. So I don't know the validity of it, but as we talk about this, I mean, we're in a pretty good spot because we have our political correspondent, the VP of research, who has just joined us. So let's bring him to the stage, and we'll let him chime in because I know he's going to have lots of hate to spew at us.
Hey, good morning, fellas. How y'all doing? Please excuse my tardiness.
No show.
Yeah, but no, I didn't. By the time I was tapped in, I didn't catch everything, but I caught enough of what EJ was saying in the end to kind of get a gist of of what y'all are talking about here. I would agree with that, man, to a large extent. Not all of it, but to a large extent. And I think it comes down to the fact that the Democratic Party has shifted over the years. When you look at going back to the 1930s when you had FDR, and he put in things like Social Security and things like that, where the Democratic Party was focused on working people and poor people. And even though FDR, the Roosevelts were extremely rich, they were millionaires back then, but the kind of money they had would be like hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in today's money, and he still thought it was best to look out for the little guy. And then you fast forward to Lyndon Johnson with the Great Society and starting Medicare and Medicaid and, the war on poverty and all that, those things like that, all those programs they put to help low wage, working class people. And over time, the Democratic Party started shifting away from those people, I think, in believing that they had those folks in the bag. And so let's tweak a little bit to cater to the rich some. And then we got these people in the bag, and then we're going to just win all the elections because we'll get the campaign money from the rich people. And then we got the poor people in the bag already. Right. And over time, that ended up being almost like, let's just cater to rich people. You know what I mean? And I think that you can take that same idea that I just laid out and kind of apply it to Black people. Black people are the base of the Democratic Party. Black people aren't Democrats because they believe in everything that the Democratic Party believes in, right? Black people are Democrats because of voting rights. It's a race issue, right? Lyndon Johnson passes the Voting Rights Act in the 60s, and all of these Southern Democrats become Republicans. All of the Southern states switch from being reliably Democratic states to becoming reliably Republican states. Black people saw that and said, I'm going to rock with Democrats. Because truth be told, a lot of Black people after the Civil War, when we were first allowed to vote before all the shenanigans, were Republicans, And I think that the Democratic Party needs to look at that and kind of have a self-evaluation and say, we need to get back to our roots of supporting working people and the forgotten and left behind, people of color, etc. And you have some in the party who want to do that. The Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, the Rashida Tlaibs, people like that. But they're the minority in the party of the party.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that historical breakdown.
Listen, man, where's my fucking student loan money, bro? Where's my student loan money, dog?
Fuck all that.
Throw us a fucking bone, dog. Like you don't even got to go out on a limb, like. And I don't know if you probably didn't hear this part, VP, but I made mention of what you said, where hopefully it's timely and political, and they're waiting, but at some point it becomes too late. Like you waiting too damn long. Like by that time you're pissing on a fucking a 4-alarm blaze, right? If you put the fire out early, or slow it down, then you got some smoke and you just got to control it. But the fire's getting out of hand, man, and you're starting to lose people. And by the time you get to it, it's gonna be a little bit too late in my eyes.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think.
Correct me if I'm wrong, both of y'all, though, right? The student loan forgiveness, I think, has been the one issue across the board that I have not seen Republicans really give a shit about.
No, they haven't. But I think the reason that they haven't is that is something that is on the back burner. I wouldn't even say it's on the back burner. It's something that we were talking about cooking. We're preparing a menu. You know what I mean?
We know we got groceries. We just don't know what's for dinner.
We ain't even buy the ham hocks.
Exactly. So I think that's why you don't really see Republicans out there talking about this, because it's something that's not actually being considered.
I also think they don't give a fuck, though. I really don't. I really don't. I think they have, in their minds, they have bigger fish to fry. And while a lot of their base it may not apply to, a lot of their base it doesn't apply to, so they don't really give a fuck.
I think that you're right to a point, but I think that, like, when you look at the student loan forgiveness that's been done so far by the Biden administration, the folks who've had they can't come after those people. They did student loan forgiveness for 300,000 disabled people. What do you know what I mean? Who's gonna go shit on handicapped folks?
Except
they fix the student loan forgiveness program for active duty military and veterans. Who's gonna shit on them? And so I think we haven't got to a point of forgiving student loans for the people that Republicans don't like, i.e., black people. So and when you look at the forgiveness they did for disabled people, we're talking about roughly 300,000 people. The thing they did for veterans, we're talking about roughly a couple 100,000 people, right? So less than 1 million folks overall probably were impacted by these things they did in the student loan program. When we start talking about there's more than $1 trillion of student loan debt out there.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about that, I think you're gonna hear those folks making a lot of noise. And to Steve's point, I think one of the things that Trump did that was super effective, right? It was total bullshit, but it was super effective. Was almost 2-3 times a week, you would see them have some kind of thing on camera of him signing executive orders, right? And a lot of those executive orders actually weren't doing things. Some of them were like, oh, Trump signed this executive order directing the Department of Education to come up with a memo to him on potentially, forgiving student loan debt. But he would characterize it as, I'm doing this executive order on forgiving student loan debt. And people are like, yo, promises made, promises kept. You know what I'm saying? Because most people are living their life. I have a friend from work who listens to the podcast all the time. And I tell her this all the time, right? Most people, they just live their life. They get up, they get the kid ready, they drop the kid off at school, they go to work, they come home, they're trying to make some dinner and, help with the homework, etc. Right? And maybe they got the news on, maybe they don't. And they catch a quick story that says, in national politics today, the president signed an executive order directing the Department of Education to, get rid of student loans. And they're like, yo, promises made, promises kept. All right, let's get this meatloaf on the table, y'all.
Yeah, I heard something about that.
And then, exactly. You fast forward, and then the student loan issue comes up, and they're like, I remember I was watching the news, and they talked about something about this guy doing something, so he's on this motherfucker, because most people don't care about policy. People care about results, right? You said you was going to run and rebuild the infrastructure of this country. I was driving to work today and blew my fucking suspension. What the fuck's going on? You know what I'm saying?
But
and that's how people look at issues.
To that end, that is politics, right? But this is where Steve and I and others are saying to Biden, you're not even doing that. You ain't even pissing on nobody back and telling them it's raining. You're just sitting here not doing shit. And that's a problem.
Yeah,
That's a problem.
I agree. And for me, who is more politically plugged in, right? Who I'm following this stuff like almost daily. It's definitely a problem. I don't disagree with that. It's just that the problem is not Biden's alone, right? It's because he's not a king, and they have to pass laws through the Congress, and you have two senators who are in his party who are saying, "Yeah, I'm not for that,"
Yeah.
and so the only option is to say, well, you could put more Democrats in there and make those two senators irrelevant, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you come back to the beginning of this conversation is you're saying keep voting for me. Where's the results? I keep getting promised things and nothing happens. So why the fuck am I gonna go out there and stand in line for 7 hours if I'm in Georgia? Why am I gonna go out there and suffer through the cold if I'm living in Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin to vote when I went out and grinded in 2020 because you told me the very foundation of the country was on the line, and nothing has happened since then in terms of voting rights, access, these other promises you made on things like infrastructure, etc. And so you have people who say, why should I go out and put this grind in to keep you in office and expand the majority you have when you're not doing shit with the majority I gave you, and I can understand that argument from citizens who make it, but I also can see it from Biden's perspective as well as saying, yeah, I got a 50-50 Senate and I got two people who are in my own party who are basically sticking up their middle finger at me.
Yeah. But that goes to I'm on Democratic bashing today, but that goes back to my other problem with the party is that you don't have as many AOCs. And a sister from Georgia, I can't think of her name off the top of my head right now. Stacey Abrams. We don't have enough of those in the party that are doing the correct outreach. The Democratic Party still largely old and black in a lot of ways in the larger scale, right?
I disagree with that, but I'll let you finish.
In a lot of ways, not all entirely. It's turning over, it's shifting, but we to me, where we don't have enough of those elder statesmen really rallying the youth for the future. And my thing in that is that if we get back to the grassroots level that made this party what it was, we could say to them, hey, stick it out. Hey, we got to get this motherfucker out of West Virginia. Hey, we got to do this. We got to do that. Put some pressure, do some things. It's just not enough to me. It's just not enough.
And EJ, I disagree with you from this aspect, right? I don't think that you're wrong. The difference is that the people who are in charge of the party, they put policies in place to prevent the people who you say we need in there from getting in there. And so, as an example, in New York, you have AOC who challenges Joe Crowley, right? Joe Crowley was the number 3 Democrat in the House. He was in leadership. He gets challenged by AOC. Boom, she knocks him out easy, right? AOC then, through an organization that helped her run, is an organization called Justice Democrats, right? And they recruit highly progressive people of color, women, etc., to run for office at every level, right? They help vet them. They help them come up with ways to fundraise and reach out to the grassroots, etc. And when AOC got in Congress, her and 3 other Justice Democrats, which were Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, and I can't remember the other one, but it was 4 of them, right? They started saying we need to start primarying these old head Democrats who are not doing anything, and the old head people who are in charge of the party, who are in charge of the party's infrastructure, who are in charge of the money, basically put out a memo after everything that went down in 2018, telling the consultant class, if you work with these people, we're going to cut you off. And the people who are in the consultant class, the people who run political ads, the people who do polling, the people who help do GOTV, get out the vote, all that kind of stuff like that, those people said, I like these new folks, but I got to protect my bag.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And then when those new people like an AOC, like an Ilhan Omar, like an Ayanna Presley come along and challenge somebody who is a long tooth veteran, they meet obstacles in speed bumps and hurdles along the way
And
that
then
doesn't
we,
allow
and
them
then
to
we
get
wonder
involved.
why. And then we wonder why the little guys and the people of the Democratic Party still suffer.
No, you're right, and that's why I said I disagree with you to a point. I don't think that what you were saying was wrong, but I'm saying that there are
The black hand of the party.
yeah,
Basically.
there are basically like structural issues that are preventing those things from happening. And I think part of the reason why is that young people who are the future basically believe in all these progressive things, increasing the minimum wage, fighting climate change, looking out for the little guy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These people can't get their life started because they're weighed down by student loan debt, right? But that same group of people, when you look at the statistics, they don't vote. So then the party is saying, why should we be busting our ass to work for these people when they don't vote? I disagree with that philosophy because those people are still citizens, right? So your job as a member of elected government at whatever level is to take care of your people, and you can't say, well, fuck those people because they don't vote, you know?
But it's a vicious circle, man, because you have the party that's saying fuck these people, and you have the people that are saying fuck this party because they're not doing what I'm expected. So it's a shitty circle. And then, you know, before we close this out, because we're running long on it, you know, the last yeah, the last piece that I'll say about it to me is just outside looking in, where I think Biden is making, you know, a little bit of an error, and I think Trump strived was. He was very vocal about people being difficult. He was very vocal about telling you niggas, yo, I'm trying to do X, Y, Z. Even if he wasn't, even if it was bullshit, he was out there like, listen, I'm trying to get you niggas X, Y, Z. These Democrats is fucking shit up. You know what I'm saying? But Biden is playing that high role and the quiet role. And the you know, the only person that I see that's actually, you know, doing that is God, I forget the woman's name. She's always nasty to all the reporters.
Maxine?
I don't know. I'll look it up in a minute. But you're stupid. But I just think he's got to be more vocal, and they need to be more present, right? Like, we woke up every day and sure, we hated Trump for tweeting, and we're like, this motherfucker tweets every day. But guess what? He was in these motherfuckers' ears, their eyes. They had access to him. They felt like, as far as I feel today, we have no access to Biden. We see Biden when something bad happens, and it's like, well, Biden's going to address the nation. And then he pops up, and, you know, and then they make fun of him and they do all types of crazy shit. And you're like, damn, this is my nigga. This is who I voted for. But can I really fucking argue this shit? Because he ain't really shown me nothing in the time that he's been in there. You know, I'm sure there's fires that he's put out elsewhere. And, you know, like we said before, same thing with Obama, you know, he's cleaning up shit that was made, you know, that was left dirty for him, you know, so early in his presidency right now. But you got to do something. And I'm not saying that student loan is the one. I mean, I know I always lean on that, but something, to EJ's point, man, the biggest thing that rang out to people's ears is, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. But yet I ain't seen shit to benefit specifically black people. Granted, he should be, you know, paying attention to everyone, but goddamn, give me something. Throw me a bone.
No,
I mean,
I don't agree with that. I think your overall point was spot on until you got to the end. I think that's where you fucked it up. And
because you don't like black people.
No, it's not that. My thing is that, you know, there are certain times where there are certain constituencies in the United States that need help. And black people have suffered through, you know, years of generations of slavery and racial discrimination, segregation, Jim Crow, etc. Right? And so we need to do something specifically for black people, right? So yeah, the president's job is to help everybody, but we need to help black people.
What didn't you agree with?
That's the part I didn't agree with, because Steve said, well, he got to help everybody. So, you know what I mean? Like, fuck that. We need help. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
well, I
and
think
it
Steve
kind
was
of
trying
goes
to be
to
political for once.
Right.
and it kind of goes to the point of
Look at me not being toxic.
you know,
Fuck,
it
you
kind of
fucked
goes
up.
to this point. I'm not sure if you guys hit this already, like on the Dave Chappelle special, where he says he's jealous of gay people because
Here
he's
we
like,
come.
you know, he's
Segue.
like, you know, Chappelle says the part where he's like, he's jealous of gay people because he's like, damn, you know, you guys start protesting and all of a sudden you got all this shit done. You know, like we trying to get like y'all, you know, and that's kind of the point that I'm making when I say I disagree with Steve is that we need policies put in place that are specifically for Black people. There are literally studies that done, and EJ knows this because of the type of work that he does. There are studies that show based on the zip code that you're born in, that shit will literally determine how much money you make in your life. Just based on the zip
Not
code,
just your money, your life expectancy,
life expectancy,
your
everything.
prison trajectory, your educational level. Yeah,
it's not even factoring in man, woman, Black, white, Asian. If you're born here, your life is fucked.
Yeah,
like that's it.
Yeah,
So I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and so you look at Black people who live in these areas, you know, in these urban areas, in whatever city that you want to name, and these people are literally destined for for bullshit, and so we need policy that specifically targets Black people. That was remember that sign that it was a white guy that was holding it up. I've seen it multiple places, but the one I remember is an old white guy who said it said something to the fact of we're not saying that only Black lives matter. It's just that we're focusing on them right now, and we need a policy like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean we got it for Asians, right? You know, it just happened to be squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? That's happened to be the hot topic at the time. Asians were getting fucked up, huh?
No, go. You got it.
Asians were getting fucked up because of COVID, and you know, people felt pressured, and so things happened. But since we're here, since Vari got us here, let's talk about Chappelle, man. Let's get into it. This last so Chappelle had his special. I don't know if you guys actually got a chance to watch the whole thing. I watched it first day it came out, and there was some teachings in there. It was very direct. There was a lot about, I mean, he talked about white people, he talked about Black people, he talked about gay people, he talked about trans people. Many will say he was much more direct and much more we'll say targeting, not the word that I would choose, of trans people. I don't know about that. So the question that I have for you gentlemen is, after watching what he said and getting, you know, what he was saying, and then we see the backlash that he got of the canceling, we see the walkouts, we see all of that. Does he have a point? Did he prove his point? Did the actions of individuals help prove the point that he was trying to make?
Well, the point that he said has been a point that Black activists have been saying for a long time, regarding, you know, the letter movement, as people will say, and all of that kind of stuff, and gay rights. The thing that people forget is that, like VP said, it's not bashing those people, and it's not exclusionary to those people, because there are Black gay people. You can get all of those rights, but at the end of the day, as a Black person, you still ain't getting shit. And it's just true. You know, that community has become one of the most powerful forces in this nation. And you know, it's not like they shouldn't have power and rights, because they were getting shitted on. They were getting killed and ridiculed for who they love and who they want to be, which is fucked up.
And they still get shitted on.
Yeah, and which is fucked up. And it's
as
not,
do we.
And which is not of our doing. We all forget that, and even feminists forget this, that You know, the dominant power of this nation has always been white males. So if you're not white male, chances are you're getting fucked. So granted, we do know there are poor, disenfranchised white males here, wherever they are, the handful of them that exist. But my point is, you know, it's not inaccurate, you know, and if you're a gay or a trans black person, I don't know how easy it is for you to delineate what he's saying and understand it. But I mean, when you're facing oppression, when you're being wrongfully arrested, when you're being discriminated against, they don't give a shit about what your orientation is. They don't. So,
Mm.
you know, as long as you're a black person in this nation, you know, you better understand what's going on. I can understand why people that are not black that come from that community are upset, but that's to your own selfish privilege, because you don't have to understand that what he's saying is not to bash you, but it's speaking to the fact that no matter what you are, black people still ain't getting shit. And that's just what it is.
Yeah, I think that Chappelle, like most comedians who are at that level of greatness and storytelling and kind of piecing things together, is basically calling attention to an issue. He's doing it in a funny way, and if the thing that he's calling attention to is your specific group, then you may feel attacked or targeted or whatever. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, while it's social commentary and it's get a conversation started, right? We, like EJ talked about with the NFL and the Black Lives Matter movement, we shouldn't be looking to celebrities to be the person that champions our cause, whatever that cause is. And when you watch Chappelle, I get it. I watched one of his when he first had that first 3 Netflix special, that the first 3 that aired on Netflix a couple years back. When those came out, we watched them here, and we were just laughing hysterically, right? And then I forget which holiday it was, but we had family in town, and my nephew was here who was gay, and sometimes he's not trans, but sometimes he likes dressing up like a girl or whatever. He does cross dressing and stuff. And in that section of the comedy, like I was looking at him, and he didn't seem pissed, but he didn't find a lot of that shit funny, and so I can get people feeling a certain kind of way when they hear Dave, make those kinds of jokes or whatever. But at the same time, I look at it like, I don't feel like he's necessarily targeting these people. He's just making jokes, and calling attention to something.
And you got the same people that sit and they're okay with black people making jokes about their own black people. They're okay with white people making jokes about white people, no matter what the group, right? And you expect people to accept it, right? Oh, he said, nigga, he said cracker, he said XYZ, right? You got to accept, comedy for what it is. I don't think Chappelle had any ill will behind what he was trying to say. Was there some stuff in there that was, distasteful? Absolutely. No doubt. Depending on your thoughts and how you look at things, but I think a lot of what he was saying and a lot of what he was doing was build up for the message that he was trying to get across, in my eyes. I just don't agree with the canceling. I don't agree with, the walkout. I don't agree with the the protesting outside of Netflix, right? Because then what happens is you saw someone, there was a video of a guy that came in with a sign that just said, I support Chappelle. You know what I mean? I support Dave. And they kind of ganged up on him really, really hard body and kind of pushed him out. Threw a sign down, said he was starting trouble. And then once they ripped his sign off, he had a stick. They said he had a weapon. Like, there's all of that. And it just looks bad, man. It looks bad. And it helps make his point and prove his point, man. But I just think we're in a really bad spot right now.
And I think part of the issue, when you look at things like ESG, And ESG is a term that they use a lot in investing, and it's for like environmental and social governance, right? And it's basically companies who come out and say things like, we support not having negative impacts on climate change, and we're an inclusive workplace, and in our corporate governance we're going to have a diverse board, so we'll have Asians and people of color and all that kind of, so that way everybody has a voice in this company. And I think that those things are fine, right? But when you look at a company like a Netflix, whose job it is to put out content to make people watch, Netflix's job, like any business, is to separate people from their money, right? And you have a guy like Dave Chappelle, who is one of the top comedians, if not the top comedian in the country. And they have to make a choice of, do we want to rock with Dave Chappelle and have people watching Netflix? Or do we want to say, we believe in this, so we can't have any Chappelle, right? But when you make that decision, it's one of those things. I used to tell people, you can't believe in things halfway. You either believe in something or you don't, right? So if you say, because of our stand on social issues in the country, we can't fuck with Chappelle, right? Then that also means, you got to get rid of the Louis C.K. joint that you got on there. You got to get rid of Seinfeld, because remember, Kramer went on his racist rant on that one joint, and countless other things that are on Netflix you got to get rid of, which means then you get to a point to where Netflix has almost nothing on their catalog,
right?
And people don't watch Netflix, and they basically fail at their main goal, which is separating people from their money, because businesses are in the business of making money. I don't care if you sell Band-Aids, hamburgers, or stream TV, right?
Or pussy.
And but and so I think
you said the same thing about the NFL.
Yeah,
and what they own.
And this is where businesses have to, it's like, the reason people get on the business community is because people understand that, kind of tying it to the last conversation, that because of money and politics, right, the business community can make things happen. And so when Texas says that we're going to heavily restrict abortion rights, or heavily, restrict voting rights and things like that, businesses that are in Texas can say, you know what, we're not for this shit. And if you don't change this policy, we're going to leave. If you don't allow people to use the bathroom they want to use, we're not going to have the NBA All-Star game in North Carolina. That's going to cost your state billions of dollars. And then North Carolina says, we don't want to lose billions of dollars, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. You know what I mean? And that's why people lean on the business community. But, how far should businesses go is a question.
I think, and then I'm gonna say this quickly before we, stay on this too long. I think the underlying thing is this country has become way too sensitive. We've become way too sensitive. We've become way too ready to cancel, and this is comedy, and I think it may be because of the climate that we're not able to really balance that line, because so much has gotten out of hand for whatever reasons. But this is comedy, and people have been saying shit like this for hundreds of years. Even when white comedians say things about black people, I find humor in some of that shit. I think it's the intent and the malice behind it that I think always should be questioned first. But there was a lot of validity to what he said. So in the sense of the voting power and the powers that come behind it. So
we've gotten to the point where we just can't separate, I won't call it innocence, but we can't separate from what's malicious and versus what's not. And, to give you a quick example, and then we'll just move on real quick. Little Nas X and Boozy been going back and forth. Nas X is a troll. Everybody knows that. 100% troll, coming out with this pregnant belly, all this bullshit, right? Going back and forth with Boozy. Well, anyway, everyone knows Boozy hates him. He comes out the other day and he's like, me and Boozy been working on this record together. We're coming out with a record, and Boozy,
Lil Nas said that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Boozy has no chill, right? So this is where I say people can't separate, right? What Dave Chappelle said and what his message was versus Lil Boozy. He says yesterday, quote, "Stop trolling me, faggot. You a whole bitch playing with a gangster." Shaking my head. "You can keep sucking dick and getting fucked in your ass. You hate yourself. I would too if I was you. LOL. If you commit suicide, you would do this world a huge favor. Nobody wants you here." And then he doubled down on it, rather. I'm sorry. And so there's your difference. To me, I think people miss that, right? There's a difference between the malice, for one, and the message, that Dave was getting across. And not to mention, then you have the people like Lil Nas X, who I think he's just using his sexuality to troll, as a troll, which leads to people kind of feeling this way, not justifying it, not saying that anyone should say anything like that, not saying that these statements are valid, or acceptable in any manner or way, directed at anyone. I mean, people say stuff behind closed doors, joking, laughing, and fucking off and stuff like that, but where someone's heart really is. And I think in this, you can see where Boozy's heart is. And I don't think it's just Lil Nas X. I think he hates those, the alphabet people as a whole.
I also think Boosie just doesn't have a strong way of communicating how he dislikes this person trolling him, and that plays a part with it. But I would agree.
Boosie sound like he belong on Xbox. He like the little white kid on Xbox that just don't know and just be screaming the N-word. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy.
Sounds like a child.
It's crazy. But yeah, man. So all right, so let's move on, man. America's got to learn how to separate stuff and not cancel everyone for everything. Let's get into top 75 snub, or just the snubs real quick. There was some names that came up. Klay Thompson, Dwight Howard, that people were saying are snubs of the top 75 all-time team. What do you guys think?
I don't think either of them two Negroes are snubs. I don't think any of them. But the 75th team was comprised. The team was pulled up by a voting panel that had a number of basketball players and media people, etc. on there. Pat Ewing, Kareem, Cynthia Cooper, Shaq, David Robinson, just to name a few. And I think largely, with the exception for me of Melo, let's see, Melo is the one that stands out to me the most, that I don't really, maybe because of the points, but I don't. And Russell Westbrook is on there.
So you don't think Melo should have been there? Is what you're
saying?
think
think Melo or Russell Westbrook should be on there.
Do you think Anthony Davis belongs there over Dwight Howard?
Anthony Davis over Dwight Howard? I don't know that Dwight Howard belongs there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think Dwight Howard belongs there, but I don't, and neither does Anthony Davis. Another player that's on there that doesn't belong there is Giannis. Right? How do you have a guy who's top 75 greatest of all time? He's been in the league 5 years. That doesn't even make sense to me.
Good point. It's a good point.
And I'm not saying that you got to be retired. I don't have a problem with active players being in the league, but we're saying that a guy who has, the NBA has been around 80 years, something like that. You know what I mean?
75. That's why it's 75.
Oh, okay. So the NBA has been around 75 years, right? Pushing 80 in my defense.
Right. Close if you round up.
So NFL's been, NBA's been around 75 years. I mean, there are probably 40,000 guys who've played. And we're saying over those 75 years, 40,000 guys, Giannis is in the top 75 of those people, the top 1% of 1% of those 40,000 players have been in the league 5 years. Doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Listen.
I mean, he's a great player. I'm not trying to take that away from him, but like the math don't work for me.
Right.
Am I bugging? Am I missing? I'm looking at the list and I'm going down. Dame Lillard is on there as well.
Yeah.
I don't see Isaiah Thomas. Oh, okay. I do see Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, but there's no Joe Dumars.
I was about to say no Joe Dumars. Shit. I think if you're gonna have
Bill
Dame
Walton
Lillard,
is on there. Bill Walton is on there. Let's just leave that there.
I mean, Bill Walton
as a player, right?
Bill,
as a player,
Bill Walton had some. Didn't he have some rings in the NBA?
Man, listen, y'all gonna stop playing these games.
Chris Webber. I mean, I would put a Chris Webber before Dame Lillard.
Kawhi Leonard is on there. And I think Kawhi Leonard falls similarly into what Vari is saying, short career. I mean, has he been great? Absolutely. But right now he's kind of going through what Clay is going through. He's been injured, and I think if Clay wasn't injured the last 2 years, and if he would have sustained that play, I think he would have been fresh in people's minds. And I think he would have made that list over some of those names.
Hold on. No Clyde Drexler.
I think this list is one of those things where like the people who made it are kind of like a prisoner of the moment, where it's like,
no, Clyde is on there.
Clyde is on there?
Yeah, Clyde's on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's almost like people are a prisoner of the moment, where it's like, okay, we got Jordan, Bird, Magic, Kobe, people like that. And then, they put in a guy like a Bob McAdoo, right? And then somebody in the room was like, what about Kawhi? And they're like, ooh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, good point. The claw.
Then it's like, who can we scrub to get Kawhi in there?
Where y'all see Clyde Drexler at?
He's above Tim Duncan.
Like around Tim Duncan.
Yeah, I'm looking at NBA.com. They have it in alphabetical order on a sheet there.
He's I'm looking on ESPN. They should have done
I'm just looking at this picture that they have, this graphic.
Scotty's on it. Scottie Pippen, of course. Oscar Robertson, D Wade, Isaiah's on there. Isaiah Thomas is on there, but Joe Dumars isn't there, which is a notable one for me. Dwight Howard's not on there. I think he belongs there over some of the others. I mean, Dwight Howard had a run, man. Let's not forget the years where he was in. Sure, after he left Orlando, he was, his career started to go downhill, but for the years that he was in Orlando, I mean, he had a pretty good year. And if you look at some of his numbers wise, he's definitely in a better spot than a lot of the people that are there. Granted,
I would put McGrady over him than anything.
I think Tracy McGrady belongs on there as well. I think McGrady belongs there over Westbrook. It's hard to say not Westbrook though, because he has those triple-double seasons. Right. So that's where it gets tricky. And I think, to your point, Vari, I think the hardest part of the people sitting down making this decision is similar to what we know of annual reviews, right? At the company where you work, where I used to work, right? People get into a room and somebody says, all right, EJ, give me your person. And he's like, well, I got Carmelo Anthony. And you're like, yeah, Carmelo, but tell me what Carmelo has done versus Scotty, right? Or, and I'm like, hey, well, give me 5 people that are better than Carmelo, or whatever, right? Whatever that looks like. So I think that's more how that decision went. Those decisions went. And I think there was some names where they were just like, all right, we have to get these people in here, and we have to make sure we get certain generations, right? So I think there's some forced names in there from some generations that we could probably say today, oh no, this person is much better. But you have to think of the competition back then. You have to think of no 3-point line. You have to think of athleticism and things like that, right? So I think all of that, to me, comes into play.
Right, like to your example, Steve, like how you finished that off with there are some just like when the NFL Hall of Fame lists come out, like we look at the list and we know, okay, this person's first ballot. So if they're only going to take 5, it's only 4 spots left because this person's going in. You know what I mean? Right. And so I think you can look at it and say, okay, it's going to be Wilt, it's going to be Jordan, Magic, Bird, Tim Duncan, like those guys like that. If you're looking at current players, it's going to be LeBron, it's going to be Steph. But then like Kawhi or AD, like Giannis, that doesn't make sense to me given the amount of time that they played. And even though Steph is relatively still kind of young in the league, you know what I mean? But you're talking about, I mean, this dude is breaking 3-point records like them shits are nothing. You know what I mean? And I think that has to be acknowledged on a list like this. But Dame Lillard, I love Dame. He's a great player, and he may make this list 5 years from now. Should he be on it today? I don't know.
I think Klay Thompson has a legitimate beef if you put Dame Lillard on there. He got a legitimate beef because
he does.
If you put Steph on there, I'm the reason this motherfucker Steph was good in that tenure. I have the rings. Dame, what does Dame have in comparison to Klay Thompson?
Yeah, and it's funny you say Steph. It's funny that makes sense. He's got loyalty, stayed in his team. But it's funny you say Steph is young in the league, but I think it's because he became relevant late, right? If you think about it, Steph has been in the league now 12 years. He came in the league in 2009, but people forgot because he sat behind Monte Ellis and the likes of those people. Then he had the ankle injuries, right? For those years, he struggled with the ankle injuries, but then he finally came back. And since then, he's kind of been, so he's young to owning the league, I think, to your point, VP.
No, Steve, you basically hit it because I didn't even realize Steph's been in the league 12 years.
Mark Jackson.
I'm thinking Steph is like an under 10-year player.
Mark Jackson saved Steph Curry's career. Before Mark Jackson came on the coach, the league was they were like he was a bust. He's injury prone. He's never going to live up to the pick. Mark Jackson saved Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green's career.
He made the choice to go with Steph instead of Monte because they were trading one and they ended up trading Monte.
Yep.
All right, man. So while we're on NBA, real quick, before we get into our bingeables and our picks, which is what will close us out, Ben Simmons. Does Ben Simmons have a leg to stand on in you guys' eyes?
Hell no.
Absolutely not.
Ben Simmons is an AAU entitled brat. They knew this ahead of time. It's not the team's fault that, hey, you do all of this great offseason shooting and you get to the games and you don't deliver, you don't perform. And then the other thing is, you're alienating your team to the point where I respect the hell out of Joel Embiid. Say what you want about him. That motherfucker was like, yo, we're not worried about that, man. You know what I mean? And ownership was like, yo, bro, can you please go out there to just he's still our brother. Joel Embiid is like, yo, fuck you. I got my injuries. I got my shit too. I'm here to play. What are you doing? You know what I mean? And now, Ben, you're alienating yourself possibly to the rest of the league because ain't nobody first of all, nobody want that contract for your performance. And then two,
nobody wants that energy.
Nobody wants that energy, bro. And like you've played like subpar, like just completely subpar. There's no excuse for the way that you played. And that's just what it is, man. Like, ain't nobody gonna feel sorry for you, bro. We not.
If anybody knows anybody like this, or if you've seen any good, series that deals with addiction, when they go to those AA meetings, they tell them the first thing is to admit that there's a problem. And it seems like Ben Simmons is not doing
the first thing they say at the meetings.
Not the meetings. I mean, like the first step of those of the 10 steps or 12 steps or whatever 12. It is.
I've been a couple.
The first step of the 12-step program is to admit there's a problem. And it seems like Ben doesn't think there's a problem, right? Because I look at it like this. There's two ways to handle this kind of situation. Ben Simmons goes out in the playoffs, he shits the bed, and you start hearing the rumors about him possibly being traded. You get rid of him, whatever, right? And that thing happens around players of his level. And there's two ways to handle it. One, I'm going to go out and get better and show these motherfuckers that they need me. They can't get rid of me. You know, I'm gonna use that to fuel me to get to the next level, right? Or you can act like Ben Simmons. You know what I'm saying? and that's it. You know, and look at, you know, I know EJ thinks the guy is shit, right? But the last 3 weeks, you've had all these rumors. Deshaun's coming to Miami. Tua's done, right? Tua came back from injury. Last week, that motherfucker looked good. We lost. Don't get me wrong. We lost. Tua played the best game of his career last week.
Yeah, he played the best game of his career. But
better play good today, bastard.
Yeah,
I'm starting.
And so, you know, he could have.
I get your point,
said,
though.
Yeah, he could have came in and be like, man, these motherfuckers talking about trade me. Man, fuck these niggas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but he hasn't gotten. But he hasn't gotten paid, so he couldn't do that. Like Ben Simmons just got maxed out. So
and football is a different sport. You know, football.
Yeah.
You can't be the quarterback of a football. That you can't, because motherfuckers is not going to war with a quarterback like that. You see how Geno Smith got knocked the fuck out for $600. Like,
you guys are wrong. You guys are wrong on Ben Simmons, man. Ben Simmons has all the points in the world. Let's rewind. We'll go all the way back, right? Let's go all the way back to last year in the playoffs. This started, I think all of this started with Doc Rivers sitting him in crucial moments of games. EJ, you always criticize Doc Rivers of his poor coaching, especially in the playoffs. Doc Rivers decided, fuck this. I'm the tough guy. I'm the guy that, you know, I don't care about sitting a star. Let me make an example. I'm going to sit this guy and I'm going to play someone else, right?
Maxwell, whatever his name was, maybe.
Right. Ben Simmons goes to the offseason. Fast forward, 76ers lose. Ben Simmons gets booed out his ass, out his face, gets, you know, shitted on by Philadelphia media, shitty piece of shit city, when it comes to their fans. Not as a city, but as their fans. And they treat this man like he's shit, right? How do you expect him to respond, right? He had no control over whether he was able. Now, granted, there was some situations where he missed, you know, some open opportunities where he should have shot the ball and things like that, right? Criticize him for that. But he didn't get the opportunity to say, man, I fucked up. Let me fix this, because Doc Rivers didn't give him the shot, right? You get to the offseason. He's like, listen, I'm not coming back, man. I don't want to be there. Please get rid of me. 76ers knew coming into the season he didn't want to be there. They decided, hey, you guys want Ben Simmons? You got to give me LeBron, AD. Like, I want like the best players in the league for this guy. Like, don't give me no picks. Don't give me like 2 B-level players and some picks. Don't buy out his contract. Like, I want motherfucking everything you got to give me, right? Fast forward, nobody wants him. So here we are today. Ben Simmons still, he kept his tone. He kept him from the beginning. Hey, I'm not coming back. They're like, well, we didn't trade you and we're not going to pay you. So what are you going to do? You're going to show up. You're not happy about it. You're going to be just like any other employee that shows up to work, except he has the opportunity. Basically what he's doing is he's playing the FMLA game that people have, that employees have. Oh, my back, my ankle. Oh, mental health. I can't play. You know what I'm saying? Everybody does that with employers, you know? So I do think Ben Simmons has, you know, he has some standing room, right? I agree with EJ with Embiid being a G about it. But the question that I ask you guys, would Ben Simmons get this same treatment if he was Luka Doncic? If he was Dirk Nowitzki? If he was, you know, Steve Nash? I think you guys get what I'm saying. Like, would they be treating him like this if he was white?
So I hear what you're saying, and before I answer that, I'll
looks white.
I'll counter your example of Ben and give you that same, almost the same scenario that happened with another player who's on a max contract and didn't act this way. Look what happened between Tyler Hero and Dragic in Miami. Spoelstra benches Dragic for the new shiny thing in Hero, and they go in the playoffs. And when Dragic comes in the game, he goes out there and shines. Like, y'all bench me for him? Let me show you what's up. You know what I mean? Let me show you why I got this contract. You know, and it gets to the point to where, you know, Spoelstra has to make a decision. Do I still want to start Hero, or do I need to go back to Dragic because this guy is fucking killing it? Or do I let Dragic run my second unit? You know, that way I always got scores on the floor, you know? And it comes to a point to where you have to basically say, this thing is a team, and I need to accept my role in this team, making this team function, making it work. We all have to do a part. And I'm going to do my part to make sure we win. Would he be getting this same energy if he was a white guy doing this kind of? I don't think so. I just really don't, you know. And, you know, what tells me that? I mean, you know, I watch TV. You know,
Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger versus Deshaun Watson tells you that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. The great fucking point.
Okay, I just wanted to see where you guys stood on Simmons. We'll continue to watch that and monitor it, and as it goes through, we'll talk more about it, I'm sure, especially as basketball season gets more into the season. Let's talk about some before we get into our picks and close out with that. Let's talk about some bingeables, man. You've been watching anything new, exciting?
For me, I watched the Chappelle thing. We talked about that already. Right. I watched Squid Game. I talked about that. I went back. Even though I already watched Squid Game, I've been watching a lot of stuff on Squid Game. Like, you know, like they were throwing out, I watched this one YouTube video, like everything you missed in Squid Game, like some of the clues they dropped that was kind of giving it away. Like for Ilnam, the old man, like there was all kind of stuff that they were dropping in the show that I never saw that was letting you know this motherfucker was in charge. You know what I mean? Or was at least involved. And like one of them was like, remember when they after episode 2, when they decided to come back, and when they have them in the little room where they're knocked out and they're being changed into the tracksuit or whatever, like you can clearly see he's awake. You know what I mean? Like he got his eyes closed, but he you know, you can see he's not asleep. And so they were like, you know, that was one issue or whatever. When he got in the van that picked him up, you never saw the gas happen, so he wasn't knocked out. He was pretending to be asleep. The joint when they had the riot, when it was supposed to be sleep, and he got on the bed and was like, "I'm scared," and immediately they stopped the riot.
Nobody,
you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and then the other one, which was like one of those kind of like you got to really be paying attention to catch it, because I didn't even notice this, was when the cop was going through the files of the previous year's games. He goes back to 2015 and he's looking through the players, right? That's where he saw the one with his brother. But each one of those books he went through, it started with player 001, and then he was shuffling through, you know, whatever. When he got to the 2020 or the 2021 game, whatever game that was supposed to be, when he opened up the folder with all the player information, it started at 002. There was no 001, even though Ilnam, the old man, was player 001. You see what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
And so it was like little stuff like that I was like, yo, I didn't even see that. I didn't even notice that shit or whatever. So so I've been peeping stuff like that. I've seen some interviews with some of the players, and those were pretty interesting as well. And then the other thing I watched last night, I checked out Dune. Man,
okay.
That movie is fucking trash. I mean, it's 2.5 hours.
It's based on a book, right?
Yeah, it's based on a book of the same name from like the 50s or the 60s or something. And it's 2.5 hours, and it feels like 2.5 hours.
It leaves you on a cliffhanger too, I heard.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's just dragging. And it's so much shit. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. Like, these people speak all these different languages. So like they switch from English to like whatever language they speak on their planet. Then they be doing sign language. And then you don't even know what is going to happen. So it's like you watch and you see the chick like twitch her fingers, and then some subtitles come up real quick. You're like, oh shit. So I had to keep rewinding it to see like what the fuck they were talking about, like on the subtitles with the sign language or whatever. Like that shit was terrible, man. And then they promoted it with Zendaya, right? Because it's not like people were really going out there to see Timothy Charlemagne or whatever the fuck his name is, right? So they in all the previews I saw for Dune, they kept hyping Zendaya.
You're talking about Dune?
Yeah. She shows up like in the last, I would say, 30 minutes of the movie, and she has like maybe 4 speaking lines.
That had to appeal to black people.
And you know Zendaya and the kid are dating in real life, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Tom, whatever his name is.
Did you watch it, EJ, or no?
Oh no. She's dating Tom Holland. I'm sorry. I watched it. I watched it days before it came out, and I'm sorry, she's not dating him. She's dating Spider-Man in real life. But I watched it days before it came out, and I was like, this thing is trash. It was utterly trash. Oh, what? That I watched it days before it came out? Allegedly.
You're right. Allegedly.
It was utter it was utter trash, man. I didn't like it. I didn't like the tone of it. They did it in a context that it was almost like they felt like everybody in the world is familiar with those comics and the story. It was just, and HBO Max are like 0 for 2 right now in the same month, literally, with the many scenes.
Yeah, I agree with what he just said there, Steve, on like, you know, like when the first Wonder Woman came out, right? Yeah, they went back to Themyscira and they, you know, did a little bit of world building, but I mean, most of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, you know, we kind of know what Wonder Woman is. We didn't really need a big, you know, intro to the character. You know what I mean? Or like if you did a Batman movie or something like that, right? But this stuff, I've never even heard of this shit. You know what I mean? And they literally like just get into it like everybody is familiar with the source material, you know? And it's like, oh, the Arcadians, yeah, man, them motherfuckers are crazy, man. You know, it's like, what? Like, so, that shit was bad, man. It was bad.
I think it's also, I mean, it was a video game, right? Dune as well. And I think to me, right, big piece to
I don't believe so.
Okay. I think
I think it was to my understanding, I'm not sure.
Okay. I think it was I think there was a version of it was a comic. Okay. I thought there was a computer game or a video game that came. Yeah, 2000. Back in 2000, there was a video game.
Yeah, you're right.
So the thing about that to me, right, and going back to what you said, VP, it being 2.5 hours and feeling like it is, it seems like video games, because they're so long and there's so many options. I feel like people that try to write movies and TV shows off of video games, they're never like, it's very rare that they're spot on or that they're great. Like, I think the Mortal Kombat sucked, the Street Fighters sucked.
But that's the thing though, Steve. Dune is a book that came out in the 1950s.
True. That's true.
So
That's
it's not
true.
like they were making the movie. It's not like they were making the movie off the video game.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you
Right.
okay, so what else did you watch, VP? I'm not gonna watch it now. You guys have thrown me off the scent. Thanks.
That shit was trash. And all the big actors they got in it, like they got some heavy hitter. They got what's my man, the guy who played Thanos? They got Jason
Bautista. They got
Dave Bautista,
Jason Momoa.
You know, yeah, they have all these big names, and these people are sideline characters. You see them every now and then. It's basically this Timothy Charlemagne guy. You know, like you know, nobody want to see that guy. You know what I'm saying?
That's not why people watch it. Basically,
he's supposed to be the heir apparent. He's supposed to be special. All this stuff that they alluding to, but they never really get to it on why. And then he just becomes another dude. And then there's one scene where he kills this warrior, and then it's like he's still trash. Like it was trash. I fell asleep on it like 6 times. Literally like 6 times.
Yeah,
I couldn't finish it all in one shot.
It was bad.
I did see the new film. I saw the new Halloween. That was
with
I,
Jamie Lee
I
Curtis,
saw the new
Michael Myers. Well,
Halloween.
the normal. How was that?
Yeah, the normal. It's the sequel to the one that they recently did, which I thought was a
Part 3.
better version of Halloween. No, this I don't know if it's I don't know because the last one they did before this, pretty much while it didn't connect to the old ones, it did still, and it didn't rehash the start of it. It pretty much picked up where Jamie Lee Curtis was older and he was coming after her grandkids and all of that kind of thing. So this is definitely the sequel to that. I don't know if they meant to connect it to anything else, but it wasn't as good as that previous one. It was kind of funny to me. It was cheesy. It could have been much better. I think the Rob Zombie joints were a little bit better, but I could get through it at least. And then I watched the movie Cop Watch or something. It's with my man Frank Grillo and the guy, not Russell Crowe, but the other one. Can't think of his name. Gerard Butler, and
Yeah.
where he's trying to kill Frank Grillo in the jail. That it had that little fun action like Smoking Aces kind of theme to it, so that was pretty decent. That was pretty decent.
Oh, and I
There's
also
something else I
watched
saw too. I can't remember.
Steve. I also watched. I know EJ saw it too. The documentary on the insurrection on HBO. I checked that out as well. It had like some stuff, like some of the footage that you didn't really see like on the news. And they interviewed some insurrectionists, interviewed some of the cops, and some members of Congress and things like that. And you kind of were getting a like an inside look kind of at what was happening.
Wait, they interviewed some of the terrorists?
Yeah.
Really?
I didn't catch those parts. They definitely interviewed with the ones that I didn't watch it all the way through yet. I definitely know they tried to pick some guys, like the one guy that was an organizer. They tried to pick some people that wouldn't necessarily claim themselves to be, insurrectionists, etc.
Right.
But definitely some organizers. I didn't see the part where it was actual people storming. I didn't see that part.
Yeah.
But it was like
It
guys
seems like
that were like, oh yeah, I turned away from the melee and I was asking them to stop. Yeah, guys like
yeah.
that.
It seemed like they tried to pick people who didn't do violence. They were there but didn't do violence. And but still, they were there. They're fucking terrorists in my eyes. So, whatever. You know what I mean? But they had like 3 of them on there. They interviewed a couple of the cops and then some members of Congress, and you were kind of getting kind of like an inside look at what happened or whatever. Like one of the things that was kind of new information to me was because remember, this is at the height of COVID. And so normally all the Congress people are on the floor of the House, but because of social distancing, they only had a few people on the floor who were making speeches and everybody else was up in the gallery. And they were saying like in there, it's almost like the security forgot that some of the members of Congress were upstairs in the gallery because they evacuated the floor of the House and they were just stuck up there. And what we ended up learning was that they knew they were up there, but they hadn't cleared a path to get them out. So I guess maybe they didn't want to draw attention to them being up there for the terrorists because they hadn't cleared a path yet. And then once they cleared the path, that's when they came and got them out and then took them to wherever the secure location is in the Capitol. And then they interview people. The one part of the interview that or of the thing that kind of really got me was they interviewed this girl who's on Nancy Pelosi's staff, and they were saying like how like they were hunting Pelosi. And you literally see from the security footage of her staffers like running out of her office, and they go into like this outer office to hide. And the girl was like, they were in there, and you can hear the people like banging on the door, and the guy like breaks through the door and sticks his head in. And I guess he didn't see anything, so he just left. But all of the staff was in that one room, and she was like, she thought she was gonna get killed. She thought she may have gotten raped or what, what I mean? She didn't know what the fuck was gonna happen, and she was like, some people were texting their parents like, hey, I love you. I don't know if I'm going to make it, And she was like, she was scared to even do that because she knew she would just break down and start crying. And she was scared they would hear her crying and come and find them. You know what I mean? And so shit was wild, man.
I think I saw the when I was scrolling through looking for something to watch, I saw it, but I didn't watch it.
The other crazy part for me that kind of pissed me off, and I don't know if y'all can hear me. The other crazy part for me that kind of pissed me off, was the police response. Like you had a I don't know if he was Army or what branch he was in, but he was in Afghanistan or Iraq or something that served a tour or two or maybe one. He was a DC cop, said for like over 20 something years. His name was Mike, and this was one of the guys that got dragged from the Capitol doors into the crowd, and the terrorists were tasing this dude in his head, in his temple, to the point where he nearly died. And it was just like how it got to that point. I'm like, how did you not discharge your weapon at some point? How was it not weapons free at that point? You know, this dude was literally getting tased in the crowd, in his head. And he believed that the only reason that they stopped and the crowd was compassionate for him was that he said, yo, I have kids. And it was to the point where pulled him from the insurrectionists, pulled him up from the crowd and walked him to the front where they were able to pretty much keep him alive.
Yeah, he talking about a officer, Michael Fanone, that happened to. They tased them. They basically were he was saying like how one of them said they should kill him with his own gun, and then he was like, please, I have kids, you know, and then one of the insurrectionists grabs him and like kind of escorts him away, you know. Yeah, I mean, that whole thing, like watching it, you know, watching how the police just continue to back up and give ground and give ground and give ground when you watch it, is infuriating, especially, you know, when you see the way police respond at like Black Lives Matter protests or when, you know, the protests after Freddie Gray, or the protests after the kid in Missouri,
George Floyd,
I can't think of his name, right? George Floyd and I think his name was Brown.
Mike Brown. George Floyd.
Mike Brown. You see the way that they respond in situations like that, and to see this lack of a response from these cops, and they just keep ceding ground when we're not talking about, you know, a Walgreens in Baltimore or a post office in Kenosha, Wisconsin. This is the fucking U.S. Capitol, you know. And what's crazy about it is that the Capitol Police and the DC Police continue to give ground. After 4 hours, when you get to the end of the documentary, now you start having police from other areas arrive on scene, police from Virginia, police from Maryland, and SWAT teams and shit like that. These people show up, they're in full tactical gear, got the long guns out, and they immediately come out, rubber bullets, gas, like back the fuck up, like, you know, like the shit in the game no more, whatever was happening before we got here. And it's like, where the fuck was the response like that from the DC police and the Capitol Police, you know, to get this shit under control, you know? But you know, we all said this at the time. EJ just said it just now, you know, the lack of going weapons hot. I've always felt that way. However, in what I've learned about the insurrection, just from my media consumption, I think that it probably was a good idea that they didn't. And the reason why is that based on things that are coming out in the media, it seems like Trump wanted this shit to get out of control, so that way he can declare, use the Insurrection Act to declare martial law, and then basically, you know, slow down the electoral process. And who knows what the fuck would have happened then, because that we would be in no man's land at that point, because that's something that we haven't done, you know, as a country before, you know, where we have somebody use the Insurrection Act, basically declare martial law, you know, 14 days before they're supposed to be taken out of office. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you know, had shots been fired, it's possible we would have gotten there, and who knows where we would be today. So That's the only reason I'm glad they didn't fire shots, but I still can't believe they didn't, just based on what we see happen in other protests around the country.
Right. Shit, if nothing
No,
else, shoot, put
I
that shit up
agree.
in the sky.
It'd have been pure pandemonium if they did. It'd have been pandemonium. It'd have been bad luck. But I mean, and again, we're talking about how many officers died in that actual fray, and then the ones that killed themselves. But then, you know, the officer that you mentioned, this dude was literally about to die. So I'm just like, how? Like it's crazy to me that happened like that. It's just, it's insane, man. And this is where the Blue Lives community, if anybody should be really pissed off, it should have been the Blue Lives community, because this was, I don't know how more blatant of any effort you can say was more anti-police than this was.
Well, that's because the point that you make assumes that the people who are part of the Blue Lives Matter community actually care about that. That shit is about race. You know, black people.
You also forget that
police, so we gotta support the police, right? It's just like with the Tea Party, right? Obama's talking about raising taxes. All of a sudden, we care about government spending and taxes. Why? Because this black dude wants to do it. You know, that shit was all racism from the jump.
You also forget that the Blue Lives Matter community were the ones that were out there.
Facts.
So they can't be outraged about the decisions that they made. I watched Made. I told you guys I started that, and I ended up finishing that. That was a long, not long. It was pretty good. You know, the idea of it is white girl going through this, and identified white for a reason, going through all the hard times. Her boyfriend's beating her. She takes her daughter. She's running away. She gets into, you know, some fucked up situations where she loses her daughter and she gets him back and gets her back. And she's fighting against the father of the child. And, you know, she starts cleaning houses, and, you know, it's a whole long ordeal. It's a good show. Don't get me wrong. And if you ever forget that you're human, you ever forget that you have a human side and what empathy is, watch that show. It'll make you human, you know. It'll make you remember how you should treat people. The reason I mentioned it being a white girl is because we see this every day in the black community. And I think, you know, I don't know if they did it this way for a reason, but a lot of people, as I've been watching and reading online and stuff about this show, have gravitated to it, and, you know, have really connected and felt bad, and, oh my God, how do people actually live like this, right? And we've been screaming this shit for years. You know what I'm saying? And so that's my point there. You guys, you don't have to watch the whole thing if you don't get around to it, but watch like the first 2 to 3 episodes, and you'll see what I mean when I'm saying it. It's stuff that we deal with every single day.
No, I'll definitely check it. I meant to watch it. I always forget to use that that list thing, like on Netflix or any other these like streaming things. So like somebody will be like, yo, you should check out them. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna check that out, and then I forget about it, you know. So I got to start utilizing that tool. But to your point, Steve, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, our experiences, our culture, it always gets, you know, it always gets taken over by, you know, white experience, and it's almost like like the country think is the first thing that's ever happened. You know, a white girl puts dreads in her head, and it's kind of like, oh shit, look at this hairstyle, that's so unique, or cornrows or something, like, you know what I mean? Like, we've been doing that shit for 600 years. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Probably longer than that. You know, like the whole thing, like you said, like you know, doing whatever to make sure your kids are good. My grandma, when I was a kid, used to clean houses on Star Island. Star Island is like this, like where the rich people in Miami live. Like Diddy got a house there. J-Lo, you know, like that. It's millions of dollar properties there and shit. You know, my grandma used to clean somebody's house on Star Island. The Freemans, this old white couple. She used to take us with us. She used to take us with her sometimes on Saturday, and they were like nice. This was like my introduction to white people. They were like super nice. They would make us breakfast and stuff while my grandma was cleaning up. Like, it was the first time. It was literally the first time I ever had raisin bread. Like, I had only ever had like white bread, and I'm thinking like, yo, like that shit seemed like some kind of witchcraft to me or something. Like, motherfuckers put raisin in bread, dog. Like, how much does this cost?
Right. Sweet and savory.
So yeah, man. But like we've been doing that shit forever, but it's almost like you show this white experience of this same thing, and it's like it wakes up the country's consciousness. Remember in Chappelle in the one show where he was saying like how it's like white people don't realize something's happening until they see it in the New York Times. And he was saying, like, he used the example like how cops are beating up black people and sprinkling crack on them. And then he's like, and then one day it's like a couple sitting in their kitchen and he's reading the New York Times. He's like, honey, do you know that cops are beating up African Americans and planting drugs on them? We have to do something about this. You know what I mean? And we're like, where the fuck you been for the past 50 years?
Right. Yeah, so you should watch it because there's that's a part of it. Like there's this rich island and that's where she goes out to clean houses. You're gonna be like, what? This is my grandmother's fucking story.
Definitely.
And then I've been watching. So you mentioned Squid Games. I've been watching this thing on Netflix called Alice in Borderland. It's another Squid Game. It's another Squid Game. It's Asians as well. I want to say, damn it, I don't want to butcher this because this is how people get canceled. But I think it's Japan. Maybe I don't know, but whatever. It's similar, right? All the people everyone in the country disappears, and these people are running these games. But they step it up a notch. I think it's actually a little better than Squid Games personally. And everyone, that I saw somebody kind of posted online, and I was reading some of the comments under it, and a lot of people have said that they think it's better than Squid Games. There's more character introduction and stuff like that in this than there is in Squid Game. It's only 8 episodes, hour long each one, but it's pretty good, and you can tell there's likely going to be a second season.
Okay.
I think that's it, man, that I've been watching. Just those 2 things. I got some movies to catch up on. I still haven't gotten to watch Shang-Chi. That's I think that's coming to Netflix very soon. Or I'm sorry, not Netflix, Disney Plus very soon. So once it does, I'm gonna watch it.
Disney Plus.
Yeah, that's on my list to do.
I saw the Snake Eyes movie. That was trash. Good fight scenes here and there, but overall, I hated it. It's something else that I saw that was good. I just can't think of what it is at the moment. Oh, I don't know if y'all saw the
Peaches
first one.
Sliding down the pole.
A Quiet Place. Have y'all? No, not yet. Not yet. I shall do that. I don't know if you saw A Quiet Place, the first one.
Yeah.
Did you see that one?
No, I saw the second one. I didn't see the first one.
Wait, I did see the first one. I didn't see the new one.
I watched. The new one is just as good as the first one. So that was a good one. I was pleased with that.
Let me check it out. All right. So coming up on 2 hours. So we will take our picks offline. You guys are getting your asses whooped anyway. So
what's the standings real quick before we just give that out?
Let's see. Let me go back 2 weeks here. Damn it, I didn't tally those up. I didn't tally that last one.
We'll do it next week. That's fine.
16, 28. Yeah, I'll do the tally next week because I got to add them all up. But I could tell you. I mean, it might be close. All right, so let's. I'm gonna hand it over if we don't have anything else to VP to go ahead and get us up out of here to make it quick and seamless.
Everybody, we definitely appreciate you guys tapping in and listening to the podcast today. For those who joined live, we definitely appreciate taking the time out of your Sunday to listen to us. For those who will listen when the episode is posted, we appreciate your time as well. As always, you can find this podcast on all podcasting platforms. Just search at CastWorthy. You can follow us on any of our social media at CastWorthy. On Instagram is at CastWorthy_podcast. If you go out, wear a mask. Hope that you get vaccinated. If you already got vaccinated, go ahead and get your booster if you're eligible. And hopefully you can enjoy the whatever's left of your weekend. Be kind to one another. Call somebody to check in. Tell them you love them. EJ's on the road. We can see if you're watching on live. So hopefully he's driving safe. And we will catch you guys on the next episode. We love you. We out. Peace.